So welcome back everybody to the next Christian Runners interview, and as you can see I've got another good looking man next to me, which is Jonathon Winter. And how are you doing, Jonathon?
I'm doing good, thank you very much for inviting me today.
It's a pleasure, and we're matching. Look at this. Yeah, we're matching.
Yeah, I thought I'd put the Christian Runners t-shirt on for this.
Fantastic. So just tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of where you live, and sort of, are you married, kids, stuff like that?
Yep. Okay. So I currently live with my family in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Now I don't have a Northern Irish accent.
I wouldn't say that. You're definitely not from Northern Ireland.
Originally from Surrey, down southeast of England.
Yeah.
Quite nice part of the country, posh part of the country. And I'm married to Rinalyn, who's actually from the Philippines.
Oh,
and we've been married for 18 years. We celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary just last month.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. And we have two teenage children, Joel, who is 17, and Hannah, who is 14.
So I bet they're a handful then.
Well, not so much now. They're quite. They're good kids. Even though they can sort of stretch my patience sometimes, but they're good kids. Oh. And so that's roughly where we are. Currently work for Faith Mission Bookshops, but currently furloughed at the moment because of lockdown, but hopefully going back.
Is that sort of why you're in Northern Ireland?
No, originally we came from, we were originally in the Philippines. Okay. I'll share more a bit later about that, but we returned to the UK in 2013 to work with a local mission agency based here in Northern Ireland. Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, I moved on from there, simply because support was just dwindling. Right. And so I needed to sort of transition to some other form of employment while sort of continuing Christian ministry. Right. So that's why we're here in Northern Ireland.
So what do you say? It's what's it called? Faith Mission Bookshops or something?
Yeah, Faith Mission Bookshops. So obviously a Christian retailer, and prior to the pandemic, we were involved in bookstores at big conferences and church events, and we have a number of Christian bookshops around Northern Ireland and Scotland.
Oh, right, that sounds really interesting. I've got to say, I'm probably one of the worst readers in the world, me. You know what I mean? I can actually say the book that I've read the most is the Bible, and that's absolutely true. I've just spent probably about 3 months reading a book, where my wife can read a book in a day or two. She's got a shelf full of books, and I've got a little shelf with just a few on. So
I never used to be a big reader myself, but I think when I became a Christian, and then my love for travel, I've sort of just built up books and stuff like that.
So obviously, you sent me a little bit about yourself, and just looking where you've been. Obviously, we'll come to in a bit, but amazing me. I ain't gone that far, me. I think I went to Tanzania for a little bit, but that's it, just on a mission. And the rest of it, I travelled out of the UK.
Well, after lockdown, you probably have to do a bit more.
I know, but I've got a few little holidays booked. We've got a caravan, so we'll be touring that up and down the country. Yeah. Yes. So let's get to a little bit of running. Obviously, we're both Christians. You're a Christian, and you're a runner. And so, how did all your running start? Did you start at school?
Yep, I started actually when I was in primary school, and sports days, PEs, and that sort of thing. And I just you know, every time we had sports day, I was always winning all the sort of like short event, you know, short distance events and things like that. So, but it wasn't until I was 13 that I joined a local running club back in Surrey.
Yeah.
And very quickly, the coaches there saw that I had a gift, a natural ability for running, for sprinting. So from the age of about 13 up to the age of 17, I focused on sprint events. So I was a 100-meter, 200-meter, and 400-meter runner.
Yeah.
And did the 2 relays, that sort of thing. And
did you ever drop the bat? You ever drop the
no,
bat
never.
on relays?
No, never. But one time I got our team disqualified for running out of the lane.
Oh, yeah.
Which was really that was horrible. I felt really embarrassed. But so I ran at basically school, district, county, and level, and then also we were part of the Southern Men's League, so we were travelling around the south of England, competing at a sort of a regional sort of level.
Right. So what would you say your best sprinting was? 100 meters, 200 meters? What would you say?
It started off with 100, but I think my I think it was 400. I really sort of came into my element in 400. Ran around. I think at the age of 15, I was running 55 seconds.
Right. That's good. Yeah.
And then my coach wanted me to try to go up to the 800, but I just resisted. I just was not I was not a middle distance. I didn't see myself as a middle distance runner, but looking back now, I think I should have given it a go, because I think it, you know, you could have seen that, you know.
I'm probably totally opposite of you. I was just no good at sprinting. By the time I won a sprinting race, they're all finishing by the time I just got out of the blocks. But on the longer stuff, endurance, that's where I came to my own. But it was quite funny actually, because I went for a bike ride a couple of days ago and I put it on Strava, and I totally forgot to change it from run to bike. So loads of my friends were like texting me saying, "Jason, you've done 400 meters in 44 seconds. You're really going fast." And I was like, "Oh no." And I'd done like some miles in 3 minutes 30, breaking world record.
Yeah.
So I had to change that very quickly to a bike ride. So I'm just sort of looking at you sent me. So you've got some pretty decent PBs for longer distances. So like even a 5K, 21 minutes, that's pretty good. 10K, 49, and a half marathon, 146. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Have you done anything longer? Because we had that lovely Am last week who just goes out for a jog for 20 miles.
I mean, I admire people that go out on a regular basis for 20 miles. But last year I was meant to have done the London Marathon for Christian Aid. And obviously, because of the pandemic, that was cancelled. So I basically stopped training for once it was finally cancelled. I just stopped training, because I'd been training since January last year all the way through to August, and it's, I mean, as a distance runner, you can't keep that, unless you're really fit. It's to keep that sort of standard of training going. You risk getting injuries, so I just pulled my distances right back. But then when the virtual marathon, London Marathon was then announced, I thought to myself, well, I haven't, I've sort of dropped down on the distance aspect, but I'll do it, I'll do it on behalf of Christian Aid.
Right.
And last year the weather was terrible, and I didn't run 26.2 miles. I ended up running over 27 miles, because the official London Marathon app, there was a glitch. So I can, so some of my friends were saying, "You're already now in the field of ultra marathons."
That's it. When I was talking to Pam last week, it was like, I've done a lot of marathons, but I've never gone over, apart from walking, I've never gone over that marathon distance. So I just need to do it like yourself, and then we counted as an ultra runner then, I suppose.
But hopefully next year, I've deferred my place to next year
Yeah.
for the London Marathon. I wasn't, because of not just the disappointment from last year, but the psychological, impact that it can have when you train and then it gets cancelled, and then you train again and then it gets cancelled again. It can have quite an impact on you. And I just thought I couldn't do that again this year, if you know what I mean.
I wish they'd just cancelled it and said, look, we'll have it next year. And I think there's a lot of races the same, but they're all trying to push them back. And I think just leave it, do it next year, because I organise a race and I've decided it's in July. So in theory, I probably could go ahead with it, but you just never know. So we've just decided leave it till next year. So we've missed 2 years, but I've got some other ideas to do it virtually. So charity.
Nice.
So I've heard you're a coach too. Do you coach sort of at a local club or something?
Yes, I'm a UK athletics coach. Completely different role than being an athlete, and now I have so much more admiration for my old coaches. Now than when, and now I understand why they got me to do certain drills and certain training sessions, whereas back then I was like, oh, they're just
like, oh, not this again, not IDs, not all this. And
but so I coach at Scrabble Striders, which is not far from where I live, and it's a club that started in 2016 by some local people that had just completed the Couch to 5K themselves. And they, because there was no running club in that area, they decided to start a club. And today we have over 300 members.
Wow, that's really good.
So it's a very inclusive club. Brilliant. And so I coach there and really enjoy it.
Oh, that's super. We were back on the track on Monday at my local club where I coach, and I don't know, it just seems so strange. We were all back, and it's like, oh, some of the people, the faces, and it was really good. Great to get back on track. I love it myself, even though I don't like running round and round loads of times for my distances. That's all. Get a bit. Right. So, have you got any sort of, apart from London, have you got any other running plans?
Well, I'm supposed to be meant to be doing the Dublin Marathon in October. That was another deferred race, and hopefully it will go ahead. But then again, Dublin at the moment is behind the vaccine, behind the vaccine rollout than the UK. So we'll just have to see what transpires from there. I do have the Larne Half Marathon in September. Hopefully that will go ahead, or which is now called the Antrim Coast Half Marathon. And now I think that's like what I mean by a prestige sort of race. They're getting a lot of international elite runners, people like Mo Farrow and others.
Like Jonathon
Winter. No. But it's a very flat course, so it's known for its PBs. So I'm hoping if it does go ahead, hopefully I'd love to try and go for a sub 145 if I could. Yeah.
Well, you'll know what to do. Get that training plan down and stick.
That's right.
It like glue, best you can. Yeah. Oh, fantastic. What would you say is your favourite race? Obviously, you've done lots of stuff. What would you say? One that sticks out in your head and you think,
I think it's the half marathon, because my first half marathon that I did in 2019 was the Dublin half marathon in around Phoenix Park. A really good, a really nice race. There was about 9,000 runners, and I was like aiming for just try to get to 2 hours, because that was my first ever sort of half marathon, and I surprised myself and I ran it in 1:52.
Right. Yeah. Very good.
So I thought, that, and it wasn't, the training isn't as intense as a marathon. A marathon, you have to put so much more.
It's time,
long miles.
isn't it? The time on the street marathons.
Whereas the half marathon, yes, you still need to train, but it's not as taxing or demanding in terms of time. And once you've got one under your belt, you can sort of adjust your training to how you're feeling and what that you're capable of. So I'd say half a marathon would be my sort of.
Well, a couple of years' time, we'll get you down to like 1:30. So just keep plugging.
I look forward to that. Yeah. Well, I mean, funny enough, the coach, one of the coaches at my club, he was putting me through a marathon program, training program, for the London Marathon, and he said, "What's your half marathon time?" I said, "I was 1:52," and he said, "Oh, well, I think you need to be aiming for a 3:45 marathon." I'm thinking, what? But then the training that he put me through, when I looked at my paces for shorter distances, made sense. But he keeps, even, I mean, I'm a coach, but even he himself always keeps sort of reminding me, you've just got to get the long miles in. And the thing is, I'm not good at putting long miles in. I think that's the sprinter coming out of me that just doesn't want to.
I think in my later life too, saying that I'm only in my 50s, but I've done the long distances, but I'm the same. I'm thinking, just do these nice little 5Ks and you finish, you can have your breakfast and you're back home, you know what I mean? So I'm getting lazier as I'm getting older, but so obviously you're in Northern Ireland. So if you did a park run on a Saturday, which is your sort of local park run? So then if any other Christian runners are watching, they might be able to meet your park.
My local one would be Stormont on the estate. It's a 2-lap, 2-loop course, and it's a bit of both of trail, pavement, and a bit hilly. But if you PB on something like that, then you know that on a flat, of course you'll be even, so that would be my local one. But I do sometimes try to go to different ones.
I think what's great with the Christian Runners group is because people are seeing everybody all over the country.
Yeah.
And I think it's good to think, all right, like yourself, your local park runner, hopefully there'll be other people, hopefully when we come out of lockdown, we'll be able to meet up, and especially if we're wearing his t-shirts or vests.
Yeah.
Oh, another Christian runner. And
that's right.
A great witness too, going around in 2s or 3s or even more. So
I know.
Can't wait for that day again. I really can't.
I know. I mean, we're doing like not the park run, and it's been great doing that. You go out and run a 5K on your own, and then you submit times. But the reality is, there's nothing like a park run.
No.
The actual park run. I mean, the buzz about it, the people of all different abilities, and just going out to just get exercise, get out in the fresh air. It's just fabulous.
It's like church outside all the time, isn't it? Everyone's different abilities, different walks of life. I mean, and we all just come together for that.
That's right.
Hour on a Saturday morning and chatting, running. Brilliant. Right then, let's get back to church anyway. You know what I mean? Because obviously, I mean, you've done loads running and you're still doing loads running, which is brilliant. But church-wise, just tell us a little bit, probably, how did church start for you? You know what I mean? From a church family.
Yeah. So I don't come from a Christian family. I was orphaned by my father when I was 3 months old. He was unfortunately killed in a car accident. So I never got to know him. He was only, I think, around 21, 22. And then my mother was around 22 at the time. So she was having to then bring me up. for a few years by herself. Obviously had family, but then my mother remarried my stepfather father when I was about 4 or 5, and they then divorced when I was about 13. But as I was saying to a friend last night, I don't see my stepfather as my stepfather. He's my father.
Yeah.
He's the only one, you know, he adopted me, and he's the only one that I've ever known, if you know what I mean. And he you know, he loved me as his own. And, you know, and so when I sort of look back at my Christian, you know, when I look now as a Christian and I look back, I think, wow, God had his hand upon my life even back then.
Yeah, really.
Even though my parents divorced when I was 13, but still, I can't say that I had a bad upbringing. You know, God's hand was still, you know, was upon my life, because you do hear stories of step parents treating their stepchildren in awful, horrible ways. And I just thank God that God preserved me from all that and gave me a loving father like himself, you know. And so then I wasn't academic at school. I was in primary school, I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So I struggled academically. And so that's where running really sort of came into its element. That I just threw my sort of, you know, my focus on that really, because, you know, it was a way of actually not being bullied as well, because I was like one of the best runners in the school.
It's funny because I work in a school too, and my wife teaching.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I do a lot of running, a lot of sports with the kids in school, and there is kids that are not academic. I wasn't myself at school, but I was good at sport, and I really understand these kids and the struggle.
Yeah.
And I know just by taking them out, doing some running, doing some sports, they know that they're good at that, and then they feel I'm good, I'm worthwhile. You know what I mean? So it's you know what I mean. We're all different, aren't we? And just
that's right. Yeah. So I then I had a friend at school that was a Christian. I knew that he was a Christian, and he was different. You know, when the rest of us were sort of panicking about exams and worrying about schoolwork, he just had this calm about him. He was just calm and peaceful. And it wasn't until graduation night, after our graduation, not service, but you know, you got it, graduation event. We actually went, a group of us went to the local pub. Now, you know, of all places, we went to the local pub, and for some reason, I just started asking my friend questions about Christianity. And I said, "So tell me about Christianity." And so he was like, you know, answering my questions, and later we went back to his house for a fry up, and then he said, "Look, do you want to give your life to the Lord?" And I became a Christian. It was just before my 17th birthday, I think it was. Yeah, it was before my 17th birthday, so probably about 16. And so so I gave my life to the Lord there, and then I think it was around 17 or 18, I sensed the call of God upon my life, to sort of towards missions and that sort of thing, and went to Kingdom Faith Bible College, and went there for 6 months, and then I went through a period of, because I went back home to where my mother was living, and there wasn't really any strong churches, and so I sort of drifted away for a little while, and then sort of came back to the Lord quite strongly, very strongly, and then went to Bible college in Sweden, and then that
died. I'm going to go to Sweden, and I can't speak Swedish. Is it Swedish?
The church that I was then going to, that I then started going to when I came back to the Lord, had been the pastors had been to Bible college in Sweden,
Right.
and they said, "Look, why don't you go for a year?" They said, "Pray about it." So I prayed about it, and I think I was about 20, 21, maybe. Yeah, I think 21 when or 22 when I went there. And then from there, I was in Sweden for about 2.5 years. And when I was in Sweden, one of my friends there, Christian friends, he had spent a year in Hong Kong and China working for a Christian organization working with the underground house churches in mainland China. And he started talking to me about it. And I just, each time we were meeting up and he was talking about it, I just felt the Lord placing a burden on my heart to go to Asia. And so in year 2000, I actually went to Hong Kong to work with this Christian organization as a volunteer, and had an amazing experience there. And then from there ended up in the Philippines through a Filipino church that I met, or that I had been visiting in Hong Kong.
Spent a long time in Philippines.
Yes, about 13 years.
Wow.
And that's where I met my wife in the Philippines. She was one of the leaders in the church. And so
how many languages do you speak then? Because you've been to Sweden, Hong Kong, Philippines. So are you fluent in all the languages?
No, not at all. I started learning Swedish, and now, I mean, even though I can't really speak it now, but I can still roughly understand some things that are being said in Swedish. Hong Kong, Cantonese is non-existent.
It's supposed to be really hard, isn't it?
I know. And then the Philippines, I tried to learn Tagalog, which is the national Philippine language. Yeah. But majority of Filipinos speak English because it's a trade language, because of the American.
You're absolutely fluent in their lingo.
So I'm not really bilingual at all, really.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. So you say your wife's from Philippines then?
Yeah, she's from the Philippines, and she's from the northern part, a place called Baguio City, or just outside Baguio City, a province called Benguet Province. She comes from a tribe called the Kunkana'i tribe.
Right. Wow.
So she's one of the indigenous peoples. So we
love at first sight then when you saw each other, or did she went, "Oh, go away, you English man"?
No, I don't. I mean, we'd been sort of working together in the church, different church events and that sort of thing. And she, I think it's just like we grew on each other, and I think it was the way. I think the Lord, just sort of brought us together, because some people say, "Oh, so how did you court and stuff like that?" But when we think about it, we didn't really. It was just.
I suppose that happens a lot in churches, isn't it?
Yeah.
A lot of us. I met my wife in church too. It's a funny story, but we won't go there. But eventually, I did meet her in church, and it's sort of, you go back to people's houses and after church, you get chatting, don't you? And before you know, there's a ring on finger, and you're married with loads of kids.
That's right.
So what sort of obviously sort of did missionary work then out in the Philippines, and sort of what happened after that then? Obviously you're back over here now.
Yeah, so obviously when we're in the Philippines, we were involved in church planting. We were involved in we actually pastored for a while, one of the churches that we helped planted, and then we were involved in tribal mission work, evangelistic film showing, going into the remote areas in the mountains and doing evangelistic film showing, helping to equip and train Asian leaders for cross-cultural missions among unreached people groups, not just in the Philippines, but in other parts of Asia as well. And lecturing in Bible colleges. So when we came back in 2013, obviously we were initially working for a local mission agency here in Northern Ireland, and I was mainly involved in mission mobilization through them, did a number of trips overseas through them to places like India, Nepal, and even back to the Philippines as well.
You just like the hot weather, is that what it is?
I do like the hot weather, you know, not too hot, but I do like the warm weather. And then one of the things that when we came back, obviously we still have a heart for Asia. We still have a heart for the Philippines. Obviously, my wife is from the Philippines. We have family in the Philippines. We've built up a good network of friends and churches and pastors, friends and leaders in the Philippines. So we still have a strong connection to the Philippines. And so
you feel you'd like to go back?
We would like to go back, but maybe not on a full-time basis, maybe going back regularly. Our heart would be to go back each year and do mission trips and stuff like that.
You're helping them now. Are you doing like online stuff or?
Yes, like for one of the Bible colleges that I teach at prior to leaving the Philippines, and obviously now Maranatha Bible College in Baguio City. So I'm sort of lecturing a subject each semester for them. And then also what we found when we came back to the UK is, that the Philippines is a big exporter of workers. Yeah. There's around 12 million Filipinos that are living across the world. Yeah. Obviously through work. Yeah. And here in Europe, I think there's around about 600,000 Filipinos living across Europe, and around 300,000 here in the UK. Yeah. And something that we felt that God was putting on our hearts was that these Filipinos, and there are many Christians among them. Yeah. There are a number of Filipino churches, and one of which we work with a Filipino church network here in Europe. That if they are equipped, they're already in the mission field, they're already among the nations. Yeah. They already have an understanding of the word of God. Yeah. So they can be missionaries in their host countries without necessarily being termed as traditional missionaries, if you know what I mean. Yeah. That they're already in their host countries, and they can help our churches as well to be more cross-culturally minded and outward thinking in our own country. So that's what we're doing right now. We're working with a church group called Word International Ministries. Yeah. And so they have around 200 plus churches around the world, but we are predominantly working with a number of their churches here in Europe, doing mission mobilization and helping them to think more missionally, and how they can think more, how they can engage more in missions cross-culturally as well.
Sounds like you're a very busy man, or both of you, I suppose, your wife too. With you.
Yeah, pretty busy.
So what happened with States? You're involved a little bit with the States too?
Yes, again, that is through Word International Ministries over in the US. They have a number of churches. So prior to the pandemic, I was traveling over to the States around twice a year to visit their churches and to sort of help them also in their sort of missions thinking. So I spoke at a number of mission events that they were hosting.
Wow, fantastic, absolutely fantastic. You know what I mean? Praise God for what you're doing. You know what I mean? It's amazing, and it's so, what can I put? It's so wonderful to see different Christian runners, obviously, what they're doing, job wise, and we've got everything from myself, I'm a school caretaker, that's my full-time job. I'm a driving instructor. Yeah. Everything else, and then we've got, like yourself, we've got pastors, we've got missionaries, and it's great to see how God works with us. You know what I mean? Wherever we are in this. Right. Obviously, where I am, I've got the ability to do school assemblies. and stuff like that. So I think God can use us wherever we are, if it's in our workplace, if we're out running. Fantastic. So have you got a message or a little scripture? I think you have, haven't you? And
I have.
To everybody.
It's obviously it's in line with running, but you know, as you know, one thing that when I became a Christian, and I know that we, you know, as Christians, we shouldn't have regrets, but sometimes when we do look back, we think, you know, we do sometimes have these sort of regrets, you know, sometimes. And I think one of my biggest regrets was giving up running. When I had that sense of call to go into ministry. Now, I understand there can be seasons where God may want us to lay down certain things. But if God has given you a gift or an ability to do something, does that mean God wants us to lay those things down on a permanent level? I'm sort of learning now, as I've coming back into running, that actually God can use your abilities and use your natural giftings for his glory, for his purposes, as what you're saying with your caretaker job.
Yeah.
You know, it's giving you an avenue to actually do school assemblies. It's actually giving you a platform to influence others that may not necessarily have an understanding of the Christian faith, or don't really understand what it's about, or don't even have anything to do with Christianity. And so it's the same with me, like with running. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31, and I'm speaking from reading from the NLT translation. And this is what Paul the Apostle says. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. One of my greatest heroes of all time would be Eric Liddell.
Yeah, mine too.
He was a missionary to China. And I love one of the things that he actually, or one of his quotes, and he said, I believe God made me for a purpose, but he also made me fast. And when I run, I feel his pleasure. And I know that for me, even back then, when I look back now in my running days, when I ran, there was something, I felt different. I felt I was in my prime. I felt I was doing something that not only enjoyed, but that I was built to do. And even now, I see running now in that same way, that I'm doing something that God has made me and built me to do. And I feel that he's happy. But not only that, that in what I do in running, I can glorify him. That as a coach, I can glorify him. And that is not just for running, but that can be for any area that God has gifted us with, not just spiritual gifts, but natural abilities, passions that God has put in us. And I know for me, one of my heart's desire is somehow to be able to incorporate running, coaching as part of my Christian witness, as part of my Christian identity, and as part of my Christian ministry.
You know, something I find, you know what I mean, I echo exactly what you're saying. And it's obviously like yourself, I coach in my local running club, and I'm actually the longest member of my club, 32 years. And everybody, they know me. They know that I run with a Christian runner's vest on. They know I go to church. They know my lifestyle. And it's interesting when I'm around someone, if they start, say, swearing, or they're like, oh, Jason's here, and the amount of people that have come to me and just want to talk to me, something to do with, can you pray for me? Can you pray for me, Mum? And it's, you know, I mean, some of them call me the God man or the Jesus man. And in a way, I like it because they know where I stand. And I love, you know what I mean, I'm doing something I love, running, but I'm not pushing anything down anybody's throat. But it's great how God can just use you. And obviously with park runs, you can put down that you're a Christian runner, you know what I mean, on your profile. So when your times come up or any park run, and the people see it, and lots of my clubs say, why don't you put down Rothwell Harriers? That's my running club in Leeds. And I'm going, but on a Saturday, I'm a Christian runner. I'm running with this T-shirt on Saturday. If I'm doing a proper competition, I do it as Rothwell Harriers. You know what I mean? But everybody knows who I am. You know what I mean? And
that's right. Yeah,
we're a witness in the world, aren't we?
And I think that what I'm learning now and what I'm discovering is that what we are interested in terms, God-given interest, whether it's running or whatever God has put in our hearts or passions, like Eric Liddell, is it doesn't have to be separate from our Christian walk. It doesn't have to be separated. It's God sees us holistically. He sees, the spiritual aspect's important to the emotional, the physical aspect is also important to him. And when we start to think holistically, then it opens up so many other avenues for us to engage in our Christian witness. And I would even say that, I know that I'm called to missions. I know that I'm called to preach or teach. But at the same time, I know that there's this passion to be involved in running, to coach, and that shouldn't, and the Christian call to ministry shouldn't diminish.
No. It's like Eric Liddell, even though he became a missionary. I mean, for those that have not, obviously, I'm sure everybody's heard of it, Eric Liddell, it's to do with running, but if people haven't, watch the videos, the DVDs, you can books. I mean, I've read and I know so much about it. And the thing is, even when he went to China as a missionary, he was still using his running. He was still taking groups. He was still doing sports. And obviously God used him through that. But an amazing talent, you know what I mean? And what a witness. What he stood up for. Absolutely.
I know.
You know what I mean? I would find it hard to do what he did, but I mean, God absolutely blessed him. But what a character, what a person.
I know, and there's a number of books written about him, and so for the listeners, there are books out there. I think I even have a copy, one copy of his about him, and it's just amazing, and that that I think we have an opportunity that through sport and particularly through running, the witness that we can be. And I'm at that moment, I'm at that place now where I'm praying, Lord, help me and give me wisdom how I can incorporate running and coaching into missions and into ministry, because it's a phenomenal opportunity. And even for those that are called into full-time ministry, that may be pastors or church leaders or whatever, that if they're runners, don't see that as anything less than their ministry. It can be an extension to their ministry.
And the thing is, the main benefit of it, it's keeping you fit. And I always say to people too, you know what I mean? Do you think Jesus was a fit bloke? Absolutely. Because they didn't have cars in them days. They only had horses and carriages, horses and whatever, you know what I mean? So, and it tells us he walked there, he went up to the mountains, you know what I mean? So I think himself and the disciples and people around that time will have been fit people. And in our society now, we're lazy. You know what I mean? If we go to the shop, we jump in the car, where actually it might only take us 5 minutes to get there. You know what I mean? But Jesus is our example, isn't he? And I know not everybody can run, but people can walk. You know what I mean? People can get and exercise, and I think that's what we should do. I really do believe that.
And I think this pandemic has highlighted
absolutely
of health, and more people are getting out now. And the great thing also about the park run, you don't have to run it.
No, that's
you can walk it.
Absolutely. We've got my park run. I do. We have a big group that just walk at the back. Sometimes you want them to go quicker to get them through, so you can do results. But that's park run, isn't it? it's involving everybody. So if
That's
there's
right.
people out there watching and thinking, I'm not a runner, well, you could be a walker, and there's no reason why you couldn't walk your park run and still be like a Christian runner. You know what I mean? So
That's right.
Anybody. Well,
That's right.
we could go on talking. You know what I mean? I think
I know.
it's probably the longest one we've had so far. So whoever's got to the end of this interview, well done. You can have an Easter egg anyway. But it's been wonderful to talk to you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
If I ever come over to Northern Ireland, I'll be knocking on your door.
Yeah, do that. Come over and do the Stormont Park run.
So if you ever are in Yorkshire, come over. Because Yorkshire's God's country, you see. That's what they say. I mean, so
that's right. But try, maybe think about planning to do maybe the Antrim Coast Half Marathon next year.
I'll think about it.
It's very beautiful.
But thank you so much. Thank you, and may God bless what you do. And I'm sure God's got plans for you, whatever the future is for you and your wife and your kids. But thank you so much for sharing and being open. And as we say, get out and have a run.
Yep. Thank you very much.
God bless.
God bless.